understand. And we'll make sure we put this PDF online so you can access the whole presentation. So congregation's 50 years old. They've been a small congregation for a very, very long time. And small meaning, in my entire time here, I think the largest worship attendance they've had is about 80. And I'm not sure they've ever been over 100 in their 50 years of existence. So they've been small for a long time. Their pastor left at the beginning of December. I think December 8th was her last day. She took a new call. That's a tough time of year. Very, very tough time of year for a congregation to go through a change. So Pastor Matt jumped in, did a couple weeks. The bishop did the Sunday before Easter, but Pastor Matt did Christmas Eve. Rental income is very, very important for their survival. Our rent, any rent we get here is, kind of whipped cream. It's nice to have, but we don't really rely on that per se. Rental income, I'd have to find the exact figure, but I think theirs is upwards of $60,000 and their annual giving is about $123,000. So they really need the rent. Their pastors have almost always been fresh out of seminary. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You can get a dynamic person fresh out of seminary, but sometimes it does help to have some experience, be around the block, realize sometimes the world does not end with some issues. You think the world's coming to an end. If you've been around the block a few times, you realize the world's not really coming to an end. We can handle this. But they often, sometimes there's congregations that just think we're a first call church. The person's going to be here 3 or 4 years, and then we're going to get a new person, and that cycle is going to always repeat. Our tithes, Good Shepherd tithes, 2012, they lost their musician, and we had 2 of our people. Bill Steve, it seems like he keeps repeating, helping out in a crucial time, but Bill Steve and Nancy Carlson, I think, in a sense, helped out all summer and helped them as they were assessing where to go next. Pastor Ted was actually the interim pastor after he retired as bishop and served there for a period of time. And I already said the ICC has dramatically cut the time between the... So since December 15th, Matt's been the primary preacher. In a sense, Matt is, I think, except for 2 Sundays, Matt has been there every Sunday this year. Pastor Ted preached the end of December. He's done a few hospital visits. Peter's dad, Pastor Larry Schmidt, and they loved him. Know what's not to love with Larry if you've ever met him. He did 2 Sundays late January and did a great job. I did a funeral for them for one of their charter members, like right after this connection started. And really, mostly what I've been doing is just giving them some advice via email. In fact, a good example probably is their last newsletter article. As we're just about to start this what we're suggesting today, they kind of put together an opening page thing that was kind of a doom and gloom. This is not this is a troubling time for us. And I was saying, no, this is a very hopeful time, what we're suggesting. Preach hope and encouragement. And they went that route. And I think there's actually a level of excitement there. And that's one of the things I want to just point out to you here. They had 10 new members in 2013, which was one of the largest. It probably was one of their larger numbers in the last few years. In fact, they all joined, I think, the Sunday that the pastor announced she was leaving. But I think that was a sign that she'd been doing some good work in getting some new people. 45.7 was their average weekly worship attendance last year. Contributions, $123,000. They gave $6,000 to the synod. A couple years ago, I think they gave 0, so that's improving. But give you a sense, 151 baptized members. We clearly probably have around 151, something like that here now, but 118 confirmed. So there are some kids on the rolls. I don't know exactly what the breakdown is, but if you are there, Matt will say there are kids around. Pastor Ted, there are kids around. But here's what I want to just point out, and these are the kind of things they need to hear immediately and lift up, is first 9 weeks of the year compared to first 9 weeks of 2013. Their worship's up 12.4%. Their contributions are up 10.7%. 2 weeks ago, they learned that we were going to be having this call meeting, and that Matt, who they really like him as a teacher and his outgoing ways. Since we've announced that, here's their 2 weeks of worship attendance. So 61, 76 last Sunday. Now, there was a baptism, so we know there was some visitors there, but this one in particular was mostly just members who have been in waiting mode. Their Lent series starts today, and we threw out a suggestion for them. We did this a couple years ago, the last 24 hours of Jesus, which probably ranks as my favorite series we've ever done. It was just one of the most meaningful ones for me personally. But they sent this out as a postcard. They have it on the road. We encourage them to send it out via Facebook and start inviting their neighbors. So I'm anxious to see what the reaction was today. But I know there was a sense of excitement. I've heard from about 5 or 6 people saying we're really looking forward to that. So Matt will also be teaching his Bible study, which has gone from about 4 people. He said they had 20 last week, and had to move it from kind of the lobby area to actually the sort of their version of Shepherd's Hall. So it's going well. Going back to this, our goal in this, and we really sense that we can be a catalyst. This is really them doing the work, but us providing some help, cheerleading, encouragement. But by and large, we're really talking about sending Matt there and us championing from a distance, helping in any way we can. But this is really, if they're going to grow and prosper, it's going to be something catching fire there, and not literally, just spiritually and emotionally. But there is the fire department real close. So things, stewardship they've not really talked heavily on, so I'm hoping the hope is that they'll send a first quarter statement with sort of lifting up some of the good things that are going on there, and saying, hey, if we keep this up, let's just say if we grow and give 10% more this year, that's a significant jump that will help them. They've radically underpaid their pastor for a long time, and if they keep shrinking in their giving, it's just not a good cycle. Their communication, their web, when I looked at it 2 weeks ago, had the 2012 Holy Week schedule on it. And they took it down, which actually is better to have it down than have it up. So, I think we can provide some suggestions there for them. But most of their communication, what I would say, is very in-house. You have to know all the names of people who are there. It's kind of like they assume you know everyone. And the goal is to try to get them thinking about those not yet in your midst. Assume people don't know what's going on, so that you're kind of extending hospitality in your communications. So Matt's probably, if this all goes well, he'll probably preach on the book of Acts after Easter, which really is about church catching fire and reaching out. We think that's a really good thing to preach. Intentional evangelism, really, as we're trying to get them thinking about evangelism, we really need to be thinking about our own outreach. So I don't see that as doing something just for them. We need to think about how do we, there's a lot of empty chairs here and a lot more down below. We need to be thinking about how do we reach out, not just assume people will show up. We're really encouraging them to go to year-round Sunday school. They think they've embraced that idea, but Matt's willing to keep teaching, and if you get and if you have a kids program, you have year-round Sunday school there. So that is a momentum killer if you stop Sunday school, and we recognize that even though people do go on vacations, we've seen our numbers in the summer grow because we keep pushing that. And just kind of work with their council is one of the things we're hoping to do. But it's an experiment. It's really a safe experiment, in my opinion. But the question is, do they want to fly solo, just have their own pastor to themselves in the long haul, just working as a solo entity? Or is it possible that they would like to be connected, maybe in the long haul, working in partnership with us and us with them? So we might say this is a drain, it's not worth our time and effort, but I think ultimately partnership in the gospel is incredibly important. We want to succeed and reach out further here, and we want to see them reach out and succeed further. We want to see the church in Rockville doing the same thing. Every church in the Metro D.C. Synod, and it doesn't matter whether it's Lutheran or not, we want to see all churches growing because the harvest indeed is plentiful. So what we're talking about is, in a sense, sending Pastor Matt, in a sense, primarily giving up one of our own staff people to serve at Epiphany. 1-year term call by Good Shepherd to serve, and I know there will be questions on that, to serve at Epiphany and explore whether a long-term partnership is desired. So Matt would still do some programming here. So like you'll see him later in the afternoon helping with some of the youth stuff here, and possibly down the road he'll bring some of the Epiphany kids here to some of our programs. He did the young families last week, and we envision he'll continue to do that. But primarily, most of Matt's work would be over there. I would be sort of Matt's supervisor and maybe just give some direction from a distance. But my call is to you all here, with you all here. It's a win-win, I think. A win-win. Epiphany gets a pastor with, I think Matt's 8 years experience now. He could tap into some of what we've learned at Good Shepherd, and I think we should freely give away anything we've learned. And if they do something better, we want to hear about it so we can do it better here. Matt's a good person, though, to lead this exploration because I've known him since he was 13 years old. I mean, that's what I said to them is I'm sort of sending my brother to you, someone I've had in confirmation. Matt read at my wedding. I'm his ordination sponsor. I preached at his wedding. I've seen him grow, and I see him excited about this. I see him really excited. And when he came to us, truthfully, he was kind of not in the greatest place, and he's really excited, I think, about this whole idea. This costs Epiphany less than what they've been paying for a pastor. They won't have a full-time pastor, but they have an experienced pastor, and maybe they can use some of that funding. I've thrown out a suggestion is possibly explore some other staff, maybe a lay staff person, or maybe you get a seminarian who can work 15 hours or something like that, but maximize your resources. So this is a win for Matt. Matt's been on leave from call for the last 26 months. You're, in a sense, entitled to 3 years on leave on the ELCA roster before, I don't know what exactly happens, but it's sort of like don't go beyond 3. Even though Matt's working here, he's not officially on the roster. He's on the roster as on leave. If you go beyond, it could be you're not on the roster, but Amy can clarify. The big thing is passion goes a long way, and Matt's pretty excited about this. And when someone's excited, I think that means something good can happen. And I see him charged up. And I think the thing he said to me is, I don't want to be Epiphany's interim pastor. He says, I'm willing to serve there if it's exploring possibly a partnership with us in the long run. So the sense of its unique nature to it and possibly helping them explore something different is very appealing. But coming from Hanover, Pennsylvania is a long haul. It's got to be something intriguing. And Matt's intrigued by this. But I'm hearing from people that he's having an impact, and I believe he can continue to do that. It's ultimately all about evangelism, helping their community of faith grow stronger. And you recognize, I think, as we're doing that, we're going to help our congregation grow stronger as well. The two go hand in hand. And I just think we'll be blessed and learn a lot. Should I pass the torch here? Or ask for maybe you should share and ask for questions, because I know we'll get some.
All right. For those of you who didn't hear me, are there any questions at this point about how this is going to work, about Pastor Matt's relationship with Epiphany going forward, or Good Shepherd? I know I fielded a few this week, so I suspect that there may be some out there. Now's your chance to raise them.
Good Shepherd, like any congregation, chooses who it will call. So, this is the congregation's choice to do this. But this is a situation in which you're entering into this partnership with Epiphany. You are calling Matt to send him to them as part of this partnership. If they were to call him, the partnership would not exist in the same way. And so this is part of this partnership, and I would really call it, Pastor Dave had this up there earlier, this is part of your stewardship in this congregation. You all are blessed in many ways here in this congregation, financially, but also with people, with resources, with an ability to connect people to the gospel and to Jesus in a way that not all congregations have done. And so part of what this is doing, this is a kind of usually we talk about stewardship in terms of finances. We say time, talent, and treasure, but usually we talk about it in terms of finances. This is a kind of stewardship of the resource that's present here at this congregation on behalf of this within the working boundary of our synod, but with a local neighbor. And if they were to call Matt themselves, as opposed to Good Shepherd calling him, this partnership and this stewardship would not be possible.
Just one thing I would add on that. The partnership is going to go beyond just simply, or has the potential to go beyond just simply pastoral care and presence. Some of the things that we've been talking about at council over the last several months, it's very difficult for a small church to grow and attract families when there's a very small Sunday school program, youth program, or opportunities for outreach, social ministry in the community, as well as parish life and fellowship. These are things that Good Shepherd excels at. So by partnering not just the pastoral staff and the expertise and experience that they bring in terms of the ministry, the things that Good Shepherd can bring to them in terms of opportunity for joint youth events, young family events, parish life events, as well as outreach events. Who knows? The opportunities are really limitless and are only bound by our own creativity and willingness to engage. So this is something that, again, has the potential to benefit not just their congregation and get them on the path for sustained growth and ministry in their area, but as Good Shepherd as well. And who knows? It could serve as a model for other churches and the broader synod and the community going forward. So I'm very optimistic about this and excited about it, just from a church council, parish life standpoint. So I hopefully that's coming through as well. Are there any other? Yes.
After the 1 year, what will happen? Will Matt come back here? I think this is the part that I don't understand. Me calling him and loaning him out, or is it something different? And that's what I'm trying to grasp and not quite getting.
Theoretically, he's on a 1-year call. It's a whole new ball game. So at the end of a year, my guess is if Matt doesn't want to continue, my guess is he'll be pursuing a call in Central PA. I don't see him leaving the territory there where his wife teaches. If things were really going well, I could imagine him saying, "Hey, this is worth extending and exploring this further." But for me, I think we're we're assuming Matt continues in sort of this kind of partnership, helping us in a limited role, but, and I know we'll get into our second pastor call committee down, later in this time, but I think you're saying this is a wholly new experience for Matt, from what he's had before. And, a year from now, if he doesn't want to do it, I'm sure it's Bishop Dunlop has probably found a church for him that he's putting in front of him. I'm guessing. Or Pastor Amy says, there's another church in Metro D.C. we want him at. You're not, doesn't. Sure, yeah. Basically contract, sort of like.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
For
Good
1
Shepherd
year.
is calling him for 1 year, and he will be one of Good Shepherd's pastors, called pastors for 1 year. And then at 1 year, potential, I would think before the 1 year period, but at 1 year, that question will be revisited, just as Pastor Dave said. Will he extend here? Will he not? But Good Shepherd is calling him for 1 year, and then so that you can enter into this kind of partnership with Epiphany. He'll be mostly there, but a little bit here, but he'll be one of your called pastors for 1 year. Yes.
Their budget last year for their complete package for their full-time pastor was probably about the lowest of the synod, which was $76,000. So what's being proposed is less than what they've been paying. So they need to get their income up, for one, but clearly if you're going to follow synod guidelines, they can't afford full-time anyway. So this, I need to find the figure. $5,000 is not what we would pay Matt. Basically, it's 60,000 annual is this. I'm pretty good at math, huh? Matt's the package, which compensation benefits is 53, and I'll find it in a moment before we do the vote. It's like 53,600. So there is some room in there just to say, me reading some email and providing a little direction. If Pastor Ted does a visit or two along the way, there's just a little bit of cushion in there for us, or if we're, so this is, in a sense, fully covering everything that we would be paying out. And the whatever the 6,500 you could almost view as income, because I'm not being paid anymore. Pastor Ted's not being paid anymore. It's just part of the partnership, if you follow me. They cover his, yeah. So in a sense, Matt doing a little bit of Sunday afternoon is, you just say even 2 hours. You probably say at some point I'm reading at least an hour or two's worth of email in a month. It's a swap out. But, going back to this, I'll just tell you, I floated that idea, and I floated the Acts idea, which they jumped with, and that was probably 20 minutes worth of work, and they were really excited about that. And we just pulled out some of our old PR and sent it to them and said, here, put it to use. It's an act. All this is always an act of faith. $53,365. So that includes Yes. Yep. His ministry will be essentially all fully paid for by them, and include, some for us, but it's assuming we are going to provide a little bit of help for them. Could. Oh yeah, yeah. But it's the big thing is you're getting benefits, you're getting pension contribution, you're getting some professional expense built in. So it's more on the guidelines than it has ever been in the last 10 years or so there. Ted, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but am I right? Kevin? They're on board with us making this decision. Their council is fully behind it. Otherwise, they would be saying to the synod, "Can you give us an interim pastor?" And we've talked with their council. Their council unanimously thinks this is a good way to go. So, in a sense, if we make this decision this morning, I'll call or text their council president so they could announce it at the end of their worship. Or we could really disappoint them. But theoretically, I'm just joking. If this goes well, I would get on the phone and say, hey, announce this, jump on board. Matt would start this week, essentially this afternoon. Because we're taking the vote. They have voted on this partnership they would like to be a part of. So, I know I recognize that's a strange dynamic, but in a sense, when you have an interim pastor, the council votes on the interim pastor, not the whole congregation. So in a sense, they've said, we like Matt, we think he's the good guy for us. So you could view it as a one-year experiment, you could view him as an interim, but it's a more creative way to move forward, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you want to say anything on that? Or do you want?
No, you should.
All right. What's their prospect in the long haul? Or if Matt leaves in a year, is this a Band-Aid approach, or who knows? Time will tell if it's a Band-Aid approach. We think they'll get meaningful ministry. Phil Hirsch, one of Amy's colleagues, another assistant to the bishop, he's going to work with Matt, getting him some intentional coaching change. Clearly Matt is not going to be their council is going to be charged with doing a lot of the administrative work, so Matt's time can be spent on outreach. But I sit there and say, if I'm sitting that close to a large high school, where everybody in that area knows that high school, I have to think somehow, and the middle school's not much further away, I have to think you got to somehow establish some sort of connection there.
I would also say, from a synodical perspective, I work in the synod with congregations in transition. So when they move, when their pastor leaves, then they go into some kind of an interim period. And we have people who serve as intentional interims. There are different ways of doing this. We realize that this is a unique way to do this, but it is. We do not want this to be a Band-Aid. So our intention is that time will tell, and that will continue to be a part of the conversations between Good Shepherd and Epiphany, but we do not want this to be a Band-Aid. I mean, if this kind of growth continues, then we'll want to work with Good Shepherd and or Epiphany, however that partnership continues, to make sure that growth continues. Because what we're interested in ultimately is that congregations are growing and people are coming to deeper faith on the ground as a result of this. So the way forward is not written out. It is not 100% clear, but we wouldn't be engaging in this if we thought it were just a Band-Aid. That's a good question. Right. Yes. So this is an experiment for Good Shepherd and Epiphany, but also for the Synod. And we think that it's an experiment with really good potential.
There was one back here. What do you want in writing? Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, I think for us, fully getting the $5,000 a month so we can, is important, because we can't be. We need to make sure that we're being able to pay Matt, for one. But there is definitely some things written down for them that we can make available. Like here's what we think you should focus on first. Here's what we're paying Matt. They understand. Yeah, I guess, you're probably saying, this, especially, we're issuing the call, but we're relying on their income to pay it, for one. So we don't have them signing anything at this moment, so good point. Go ahead, Kurt, and then I'll come on. Yeah, thank you. Do you want me to answer that now, or we can go back to? Well, let me just say, Matt has been 8 hours. He's been here Sundays, essentially. So we really can't. We have not leaned on him at all for pastoral visitations in hospitals, midweek programming. Essentially, he's somewhat like Lauren in the sense he's only here Sunday. So even though he's very important in terms of teaching Sunday, Ted and I are the ones who are around most of the time. So even though we're saying we're giving up someone, that I'm using that language probably more for their benefit. I definitely need a lot more help, because with losing a full-time youth person and now looking at a second pastor, I'm ready to pull my hair out most of the time right now. But I still think this is a good way to go, and then clearly we have 2 major roles we need to fill, but that's part of the journey, I think.
And I'll be meeting with your call committee chair today to talk about that particular call too. So this is all in the works.
But I have that sense of urgency, Kurt, right now, that I know it sounds enormous here, but I recognize helping Good Shepherd move forward. We have to add staff to do it because I'm doing youth work stuff now, and that works. But I think Shelley and then probably David in the back. They're going to do a vision process that Matt will help them with, and we're going to work with them on their stewardship program for the fall, which probably will be what the Synods program will be, which I'll be involved in the writing of that. In fact, the program will be based on what we're doing this Lent here, because that comes up in the lectionary later in the year. But personal evangelism there and is really the biggest goal, is him interacting with every member of the church, trying to maximize everybody coming while also reaching out. But in terms of running the facility, that has to be their people. We said that to the council. But I've got the sense that their council president and the people there are really excited by the possibilities.
I also think that Epiphany, this might not make sense because you're not a part of that congregation, but a lot of the things that you do really well here, Sunday school, youth work, worship, stewardship, the things that you might think of as just a normal part of church, they have sometimes struggled with some of those things. And so part of what Matt will be doing is just helping them beef that back up. And that will be a great gift for them and a little bit new for them, and a great gift for Matt to be able to take some of the resources, some of his experience, some of what he's learned here, to be able to take that to them will just be a great gift for them.
Yeah, like our summer Sunday school that we've done over the last couple of years for the kids will probably send like one whole summer's worth of stuff and just say, hey, here's what we've done. It was fun. You might just do this so you're not having to create from scratch. I think we were at David, and then I guess we go to you, Alan. It's easier for us to have influence when you're officially in the relationship. I could tell you things have changed dramatically since they sense that I'll be involved. And that sounds horrible. You just have a greater sense of freedom in offering suggestions. The early part of December, when I was making suggestions, it just seemed like they're going to just ignore everything. And one of the things I was just concerned about was the in-house the internal communication to members, which was the public communication, was not welcoming to anybody. It was so tight-knit. You had to be part of the in-crowd for 40 years, and that just needed to change. And I felt like since the last 6 weeks, I felt greater freedom when this partnership seemed to be emerging. But
I would also say that, this builds the relationship in a way that when you're just two separate entities, the relationship isn't there. We've also, in the Synod, tried a version of that before, and it doesn't work.
Well, the other thing I'd say is I do not have time to go begging, if you will, to begging for them to change. It's not worth my time if I'm having to convince. Maybe I'm not being clear on that, but it's a heck of a lot easier when they've invited you in to the conversation. I would be an outsider if they issued the call completely. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
Well, Dave is going to be Matt's supervisor, too. So, I mean, we have more of a, it's coming, ideas are coming from our congregation. We're kind of giving them a shot in the arm. Think of it that way, and we're helping them to grow. And it just communication-wise and the way things work, it's really good if it can come from us. The ideas are coming from our congregation, a lot of these ideas. So I think it just makes it a smoother working relationship, all in all.
I guess we're to you, Alan.
I'm not sure where we are on the call process for the next pastor you plan to call. Will be a permanent pastor, I assume. Is that to occur in a very short period of time? If so, does this action exclude Matt from the possibility of being a full-time pastor here? Is he being treated like an intern where he cannot be a full-time pastor of this church?
Say that one. Just say that one more.
I think I understood. The question is, where are we with the call process for the full-time associate that you are looking to call? And does calling Matt in this way exclude him from the possibility of being called to that particular full-time associate pastor position? In the synod, there is a practice in which interims are typically not called to the congregations where they served. And so the question is this excluding Matt from the possibility of being called to that full-time associate pastor position that I'm going to be meeting with Meredith later about? Oh, there you are. Hi. I don't know what Matt's plans are, and so I would not want to speak for him on that particular point. But I do not see this particular call in the same way that an intentional interim works. He's going to be doing a different kind of work. It's a different kind of call. I don't know that he would want to or that it would make sense for him to accept that call, but he will not be excluded in the same way an interim would normally be.
I think you misunderstood the question. The question was, does this keep us from calling him here? No. And this call we're putting out now, I think the answer is technically no, but the timing is all wrong, so we probably wouldn't be called. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would think so. To be fair, I also just knowing Matt, I just Central PA I think is a strong tug, and I know the bishop there is probably going to want to put something in front of him, but he's very supportive of him coming down here, and was excited for him.
The question is, if Good Shepherd doesn't do this, what is the prognosis for Epiphany? What would they do instead? I think it's fair to say they would be very disappointed. We would go back. I mean, we would probably this week try to set up a meeting with them to go and sit with them and to say, it looks like this isn't going to work in the same way we thought it would. Here are some more options. I will tell you that their prognosis is much better with you in the picture than without you in it. Significantly better.
Carol?
How many other Lutheran churches in the Burtonsville area? There is an LCMS congregation in that area, but other ELCA congregations.
St. Stephen's Silver Spring is probably the closest down New Hampshire Avenue toward White Oak.
It's probably 5 miles.
Which is probably 5 miles away, and then it's probably you're into the other synod at that point, because 95 kind of represents. I was going to say I think that represents.
Well, Montgomery County, so Columbia. I'm not.
Yeah, there's a church north of there, maybe 7 or 8 miles.
Yeah, that's a different synod. So not many other ELCA congregations in that area.
I guess Julia went. Bill?
I don't know if that's a motion. If not, I was going to say that I would make a motion to call Pastor Matt for the 1-year call as set forth.
Well, just a point of order on that. The council makes the motion, and then Bill, if you would like to second that motion, then you can do that at that time. Take one last question from Bill over there. Okay. All right. Well, then on behalf of Church Council, I make a motion that we make a call to Pastor Matt for 1 year at Epiphany along the terms laid out for you in the slide. Do we have a second? Bill Semelink is the second. And do you want to lay out the logistics?
Yes, so at this point, there'll be ballots that'll be coming around. You need to fill out a ballot, please. It's very important. I'm not sure exactly who is here, but confirmed members of the congregation may vote. And the options are yes, no, or abstain. Once you've received a ballot, please fill it out, circle your vote, and then pass it to an aisle. And we'll be coming around to pick up the votes. So please pass those ballots back to the center aisle or to an aisle, and we'll have people come up and down the aisle to pick them up. Who still needs a ballot? Could you please raise your hand if you still need a ballot? Over here, there are some. Anyone still need a ballot? Okay. Once you've filled that out, pass it to an aisle, please. Any ballots that are still remaining? Anyone still voting? Okay, we've collected all the ballots. Do you still have a ballot? Great. Okay, we'll say then this vote is closed. A couple of people from the congregation will go count that while we are learning about some upcoming excitement here at Good Shepherd.
Yeah, we're going to have to move this along, just so the other group gets to worship. So Chu Young starts tomorrow. We are just excited to welcome her. She's a fantastic organist. But you've heard about that. We had a wonderful committee. So give thanks for Judd, Peter, Margie, Lisa, Bill. You don't have to thank me, but they did a wonderful job. Have just a quick round of applause for them. I think you'll be excited to meet her this week. Call committee for a second full-time pastor. If you're here, when just Meredith Walters is the chair, but she's counting. Lisa Fakey, Scott Watson, Don Mullins, who I don't think is here. Don is a newer member. Bob McGuire, and myself. Let me just say something. I know Amy's going to be meeting with Meredith later. This is to push start really pushing the process along with a youth director leaving kind of mid-year, and there's a heightened sense of urgency in my mind. But the key thing is you're not so urgent that you don't find the right people to fill the job. So we need to figure out what's the best job description. Is it someone fresh out of seminary, or is it a more seasoned person? Is it an associate? Or is it like an executive pastor who frees me to do other things? That whole dynamic, I think, needs to be thought out. But ultimately part of the process is saying, what do you need? What do you want me to be doing the most, and take some things off the plate? And my plate's way, way, way too full right now. So this committee is in place, and I suspect our first meeting will be probably within the next 10 days. I'm guessing. So we'll be aggressive from here on out. Go ahead, Mike.
Who were at our annual meeting in November may recall that one of the things that we'd raised up as being very hopeful about was to end the year with an actual budget surplus based on historical giving and things like that, and we were doing very well at the time. So I'm very happy to be standing here today and actually say that we did end 2013 with a budget surplus, and not simply because we under-executed the budget. We actually came just within a couple of $1,000s of executing the full ministry budget, but actually the exciting thing is we did exceptionally well with our stewardship and our giving that the congregation gave and that we made through rentals. That we actually took in last year $1.2 million and change that was about $5,000 over the budget. So we actually exceeded our budgeted income for last year, coupled with a couple $1,000s below in budget execution, gave us an annual surplus of $7,000 for 2013. Giving, yeah. Just in terms of numbers, giving was up about just over $56,000 in 2013 over 2012, which represents an increase of about 4.7%. So I'm very excited about that. That's outstanding, and I think it gives us a lot of momentum going forward. A big part of this is, I think, because we ended the year with an average of 500 worshipers a week worshiping, and that's quite a milestone, and it represents at least four successive years of growth in the average attendance here at Good Shepherd. And there's obviously, I think, a strong correlation between the number of folks that come to worship and how we do on our stewardship. It's about 17 people a week on average growth over 2013, or about 3.5%. So giving actually outstripped attendance a little bit, so that's exciting. For 2014 pledges we made last year as part of our Consecration Sunday program for this calendar year. Right now are $977,000, just a little bit over that, which is about $10,000 more than we had last year. We had 220 pledges last year. This year we have 239 pledges. So again, all of the numbers are pointing in the right direction to continue the strong momentum we have in giving and stewardship from 2013 on into 2014. Obviously, there are certain financial realities that we can't avoid in terms of paying a mortgage, keeping the lights on, things like that. But fundamentally, this is not just a numbers exercise. This is not a budget exercise. What this is really about is sustaining and growing the ministry here at Good Shepherd and growing our outreach into the local community as well as the Synod. And I think that puts us on a great track to do that. Just speaking quickly in terms of outreach, I just would highlight that the youth raised over $10,000 last week as part of the 30-hour famine, and then we had another very, very successful housing benefit concert that raised over $4,000. So Good Shepherd just last weekend generated over almost $15,000 in outreach. Our benevolence continues to grow. We gave $6,000 to the Synod last year. We're slated to give 6% of our budget last year, 6.5% this year, on track for 7% next year, with the ultimate goal of being a tithing congregation. Sunday school, youth, and family programs continue to be very strong, continuing the growth from last year into this year. So again, the point being that all the indicators are pointing in the right direction for continuing very healthy and exciting ministry here at Good Shepherd.
So the vote tally is back, and the totals are 108 yes, 1 no, and 6 abstentions. So that is a very strong vote. Thank you very much. This is, congratulations.
We're in need of, we'll ask Amy to close us with prayer in a moment, but there are a few things we would probably have gotten to today, but you had good questions. It was wonderful to share those, and more questions certainly asked. But some of the other things that we're going to lift up today, certainly I could put in the newsletter, put on the website too. But in the back, I just want to say, John and Dot Haltewanger left us a wonderful legacy with their giving that will help us in the short term, help us with the 50th anniversary campaign, help us with our endowment. And they did that via intentional planning. And I give thanks for that, and we'll lift that up in the days to come, specifically how they did that. But Alice Benson, who's the LCA Foundation rep in our area, gave me several boxes full of these things. One is a will and trust workbook and important notes about my estate. You might just grab those on the way out. I had 2 people actually ask me about will preparation this week, and I thought, I have something about that. So I would encourage you to grab those on the way out as information. Alice's information is there too, but certainly John and Dot is someone we all greatly loved and appreciate, and their legacy continues. And you might be thinking about your own legacy this Lent, and so pick those up. Thank you all for this morning. And we are going to need to pray and then kick you all out so we can worship.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. God, I give you thanks for a body of people willing to gather to take decisions seriously, who care enough to come together to form your body here in this place and to think about how it is that they can continue to be a part of your good news being shared. God, I give you thanks for good questions, for hard questions, and also for an ability to risk and to move forward with an experiment that may not be 100% clear, but which has the potential to make your name known, to make your presence known, and to help people in many different ways and all over this community. Be with us as we go from this place. Strengthen us and encourage us along your way so that all may know a little more about you as a result of us sharing your good news. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.